Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Wright Perspective. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe on any and every platform you use to engage with us. Today, we're going to recap and discuss the Creed movie franchise. This includes Creed from 2015, Creed 2 from 2018, and Creed 3 that just came out a few days ago, actually, on March 3rd, 2023. All three movies star Michael B. Jordan as Adonis Donnie Creed, or I guess it's Adonis Donnie Johnson, who is the son of the Apollo Creed character from the Rocky franchise. And the first two films include the legendary Sylvester Stallone in the cast, playing Rocky Balboa. And all three movies include Tessa Thompson and Phylicia Rashad. Creed made $173.6 million on a budget of $35 million.
Oh, wow.
Creed 2 made $214.1 million on a budget of $50 million. And Creed 3 had a budget of $75 million and already in just a few days has made $22 million. So for some, the mere fact that the Creed franchise has been such a moneymaker, and the fact that it is an extension of the Rocky franchise, those facts would be enough to make these movies classics. But today, we will determine whether they are classics from the right perspective. We'll do a recap, we'll discuss the movies, and then we'll take a vote using a voting symbol that we pick especially for this discussion. But let's start with intros. Kick us off, bro.
I am Aubrey Wright. I'm the oldest.
I'm Genia Wright. I'm the middle.
Hi, I'm Brittany Wright, and I am the youngest.
And y'all, you know, this is one of those rare times where we are reviewing something that is new and fresh and new in the world. Doesn't happen often on our podcast.
No.
So it's so exciting.
We love things that are in the archives.
We do. We be in the
archive show. It's a show for the archives.
It's a show for the archives.
My goal is to make the perfect thing you can fall asleep to.
All right, so I see we need a team meeting. I don't think
that is great content. That is great content.
Listen, Genia hates when I'm always like, yeah, you know, some people could just listen to it while they're watching the
That's right. That's right.
And she's like, no, I want you
to hear every third minute and be involved.
Oh, these low bars.
Those are some of the best podcasts.
Those are my favorites.
Yes, I'm sitting and I'm washing dishes, I'm folding clothes, and I'm sitting there commenting like they can hear me.
Well, you know, you guys just keep adding agenda items to our next production meeting if you want to. You just keep it going.
Yeah.
Okay?
First
I won't be able
agenda.
to make it. I got something to do that day.
You need to be there because the first agenda item is do all three of us need to be here for it to be the right perspective?
If you're new to our podcast, we always pick a voting symbol and we tailor it to the content. Okay, we really get in there. We really get in there.
I think you need to describe. I think Aubrey needs to describe. I think every podcast you need to describe how we pick symbols. Because you said something like Genia is prepared, you're slightly prepared, and Brittany is never.
No.
It was something.
I'm prepared. Genia is over prepared.
Yeah, that's it.
And Brittany comes up with it.
And I'm underprepared.
Yeah, Brittany's underprepared. She comes out right now. And it works beautifully.
And I don't mean to, because I literally forget until this very moment that we're going to have a voting symbol. I don't mean to forget.
Listen,
I don't mean to.
Don't question how the jazz happens.
It just happens every time I go, oh yeah.
Zippity boo bop.
Then I have to say to myself, what happened in these movies again?
All right, now that one you probably kept the shit.
Yeah, and then she'll just pick random scenes that come to her mind, and then symbols come from there.
I do want you to pretend like you remember the movies.
I remember them.
Well, y'all,
I used to believe you.
This symbol, though,
I remember.
This symbol is that I'm going to recommend.
All right.
This is probably going to be one of our fastest decision ones, because this is real.
You hit the nail on
it. Oh yeah. I mean, this one is so apparently, it. Okay. So I would like to recommend that we use as our voting symbol the pair of shorts that Donnie Johnson wore that had Johnson on the back and Creed on the front. Ooh, why? Okay. So in all three movies.
I agree. I don't want to call it that, but I'm already on board. But I'm on board.
I call it the Johnson Creed shorts. Johnson Creed shorts.
I like Johnson Creed shorts.
Okay. In all three movies, this main character, what he's struggling with is his identity. In the first, as we meet him, he's trying to come to terms with the legitimacy of his claim to the Creed name, right? Because he was born to Apollo Creed, but as a result of an extramarital affair. Okay. And his actual given last name is Johnson. And so he just doesn't really feel entitled to the Creed name. And number two, it's like he doesn't want to be a tarnish on his father's great legacy. He says that, and it's so crazy because this struggle, it continues for him. I mean, by the third movie, he is still feeling fraudulent, okay? And a little bit like an imposter in his success and his wealth. And then in the third movie, a friend from his childhood comes back into his life and then actually raises the question out loud that Creed has been, that Adonis have been grappling with in his head the entire time, which is, did you actually earn any of this? Is this really yours? Do you deserve this? What, and just essentially calls him a fraud. And it's one of those things that just, and then again, he's now in the tailspin again of who am I, and the truth is he's trying so hard to like reconcile like this dissonance between who he actually is and how he like sees himself. But the truth is that's not a battle he needs to fight, because he is both a Johnson and a Creed. Okay. He doesn't have to choose. And that is why those shorts are the perfect symbol, because they hold both names. Bam.
Wow.
I don't like to enable you, but that is a really good idea.
That was good.
Yes. What did you come up with, bro?
No, yours is good. I don't even talk about that. Yours is very good, very thought out. It's actually a symbol. And it's actually, see, if you don't know about our podcast, don't be fooled by this great idea Genia just gave us. Okay? Because normally she's like, I would like to do the cigarette butt next to the spit bucket in the third act of the first movie. That's normally how she is.
It represents Mick from the Rocky movie.
Right.
It represents.
And what are we all doing? Getting smoked, right? So I just want you all to know that.
But bro, it's funny you should say that, because in my notes for the voting symbol, the last bullet actually says, aren't we all struggling with this? That's actually, I didn't say it out loud because I just feel like I needed to stop.
But you know what? That was the most Genia part of it. And don't you leave it out.
I left it out.
Because I told you that's my favorite.
Aren't we all struggling?
That's right. Yes.
Don't leave it out.
This is the push and pull.
Don't you leave the Genia
This is the push and pull that we all struggle with, y'all. And you think about yourself at work, especially as like a Black person out here in these streets, you're constantly grappling with, how should I show up?
All right,
here?
I'm cutting her off. I'd start her up again. And
man, what does it mean to be authentic?
Oh my God.
That's the question.
Yeah.
Brittany, do you have any?
Like a good tag and some nice high price shorts. Authenticity. Listen, I have a ton of great ideas, okay?
We know.
But I'm not going to share any of them because I don't want to overshadow Genia's. I don't want to make her feel bad. But there's so many things. There's so many things. I mean, I could give you a taste. Do you want a taste? No, don't worry. I'm not giving you any taste, because then you all will be thirsting for more. No taste.
There's another fact, which is this, that we have just watched so many boxing movies in a row. You know what I mean? That it does all start to come together in terms of like looking for the sim, because that's the thing about these movies, is they all at their heart, they're kind of there's a formula that they're following for the most part. Is it respected in all the movies? Right. That's what we'll discuss today. You know?
Let's discuss that.
If you didn't get it yet, didn't listen to it yet or watch it, we also just recently did a podcast. Our last episode that dropped right before this one was about the Rocky franchise. So we encourage you to get into that one if you haven't yet. That was a good discussion.
Brittany, she just sent us a document. She's
I'm
trying to make us
looking.
read.
Y'all knew I was going to do it.
No, why? Why
We
would
didn't.
you just did it
We didn't
last
know.
time?
We did know because
We didn't know.
So the next part of the recap, the next part of the podcast is a recap, and we always do a recap again because normally we're digging up in the archives, okay, to get our content. And so we do a recap because it's like people are like, I can't remember the details of that movie, or people are like, I don't want to go back and watch that old movie from long ago, but I do want to enjoy the podcast.
Yeah.
So
look and see what I did to your file.
Yeah. And then whenever it's like a multiple movie one,
You know what?
You know, for several times that we've done that, I will just like surprise Aubrey and Brittany with
It's not a surprise.
A shared recap where we all read a part. And you know, I don't think they should be surprised at this point because I just did it again last week with the Rocky one.
No, it's not surprising. And I'm gonna tell you, I don't believe that this was your plan because our names aren't on it. So I think you just last minute decided to make.
No. And I just want to let everyone know because they won't be able to see it. Brittany's putting mean things in the chat.
Yeah,
she put a thumbs down and she put a boo with several O's. You only need 2 O's.
Oh,
Brittany.
You need it? Boo.
You know what? Who did you plan on having read what?
I thought we could go oldest to youngest. You start. Because if you did listen to our Rocky,
listen to me.
No, but on our Rocky episode, I had pre-assigned names, and everybody didn't like where it landed, and that by everybody I mean Aubrey.
And that's right.
So I did not pre-assign. I was like, I'm just going to go with the recommendation that we just go oldest to youngest. 3 movies, 3 of us. Bam.
Listen, this is one of those things where she's doing something manipulative, but she's trying to sound reasonable. I just want you all to know I know what's going on. And this is what I'm going to do.
Well, I like my option. I get to say Jonathan Major's name several times.
All right, well, that's good. Janai, you do the first.
Okay.
I'll do the second because it's my favorite.
Okay.
And Brittany, she likes to say Jonathan Majors. All right, here we go.
Starting with Creed. In the first movie, we were introduced to a preteen boy in a youth detention center in LA. He's constantly fighting. His name is Adonis Donnie Johnson, and we soon learn that he is the son of the late Apollo Creed, one of the best boxers in the history of boxing. When Apollo Creed's widow, Marianne Creed, who's played by Phylicia Rashad, comes to adopt him. Under her care, Donnie, who's played by Michael B. Jordan as an adult, becomes a successful adult, working with a financial advisory company, but against Marianne's wishes, he abandons that to pursue a career in boxing. Now, remember, she and the world watched as her husband was killed in the ring. So for Donnie to want to pursue boxing, it is just something she cannot support. But anyway, Donnie goes to Philadelphia and asks Rocky Balboa to be his trainer. Rocky declines. He blames himself for Apollo's death in the ring. But Donnie is persistent, and ultimately they do train together. After Donnie, fighting as Donnie Hollywood Johnson, beats a local fighter, people investigate and figure out that he is the son of Apollo Creed. And although he's new on the scene, his father and the fact that he's being trained by Rocky Balboa make him an attractive challenger for the current lightweight heavyweight champion, Pretty Ricky Conlon, who's played by Tony Bellew. And they will fight as long as Donnie agrees to fight under the name Creed. Donnie accepts the fight. But just as he and Rocky begin training, Rocky is diagnosed with cancer and begins chemotherapy. Donnie fights Conlon and loses by a split decision, but he went the distance and even managed to knock Conlon down, something that no other challenger had done. And we know that Rocky does end up beating cancer.
All right. That last part wasn't even in there. You just
well, just like last episode, I wrote it and then James went in and edited it and he took out the part that says that Rocky was okay. So I had to just add that sentence at the end.
And Bianca ain't nowhere in here.
Wait till the second recap starts.
But I need Bianca was important.
she was important, but when you're writing the recaps, you can't give every detail. And because we have 2 other movies to mention her, she's mentioned in the second one with a reflection to the first. It was
All right,
about
let's
trying
get
to be
it. The
concise.
second movie, Creed 2, picks up 2 years later. Donnie proposes to his girlfriend, Bianca, played by Tessa Thompson, an aspiring recording artist. She suggests they move to LA as her career is picking up, and she has progressive hearing loss. So there is an urgency to capitalize on the momentum of her signing to a record label. Donnie is reluctant to leave Rocky because of them now being like family. With Rocky's guidance, Donnie has several successful, with Rocky's guidance, Donnie has several successful fights after his fight and earns the title.
It was after his fight with Conlon. So, Donnie had several successful fights after his fight with Conlon.
Okay, after his fight with Conlon, which is not there. But after his fight with Conlon, and earns the title heavyweight champion of the world, beating Danny Stuntman Wheeler, who was actually being coached by Tony Little Duke Evers, played by Wood Harris, the son of the man that coached Donnie's father, the late Apollo Creed. From across the world in Ukraine, Victor Drago, I'm going to mess this name up, played by Florian Montanou.
That's pretty good.
I hope that's close. If not, I apologize.
If not, he's probably gonna come beat you up.
Well, let me tell you,
he's still alive.
That's quite a big guy right there.
Yeah. Don't want to get on his bed. So.
They picked a good guy to play Drago.
They really did.
They really did good. The son of Ivan Drago, who actually killed Apollo Creed in the ring, challenges Donnie to a title fight. Rocky is not supportive for all the obvious reasons. Donnie and Bianca, who turns out to be pregnant, move to LA, and Donnie begins training with Little Duke. Donnie is badly losing the fight when Victor is disqualified for hitting Donnie when he was down. Under immense pressure from his father, Victor wants a rematch. The father is applying pressure because after his own loss to Rocky in Rocky IV, he was ousted from Russia in shame. His son beating Donnie would give respect and favor with Russia. Donnie is emotionally overwhelmed and struggling. His mother, Marianne, eventually calls Rocky to LA. They make up, and he helps Donnie recover mentally and physically. Donnie accepts the rematch with Victor. The fight is long and vicious, and both men are badly injured, but Victor is clearly getting the worst of it. His father and trainer, Ivan, throws in the towel to save his son's life. Donnie maintains the title, celebrates with Rocky, Little Duke, Bianca, and her baby, who was born at least partially deaf.
Creed 3. In this latest installment, Creed 3, Donnie has won a rematch against Pretty Ricky Conlon and retired. He is focusing on family and business enterprises when a childhood friend pops up. This makes him question everything. The friend, Damian Diamond Dame Anderson, played by Jonathan Majors. Pause.
You got it. I got you.
As the older Dame, and Spence Moore too as the young Dame. As a rising boxing star, when he was arrested and incarcerated for using a gun defending Donnie. They were in a fight with a man who abused them as a foster parent. Dame has finished an 18-year sentence and asked Donnie to set him up for a title fight against the current heavyweight champion, Felix El Guerrero, am I saying that right? Chavez, played by Jose Benavidez Jr. Donnie's gym is currently managing Felix. Donnie agrees to help Damian, but says it will take time. In a horrible turn of events, the challenger scheduled to fight Felix, played by Victor Drago, gets attacked. And, oh wait, I'm saying that wrong. In a horrible turn of events, the challenger scheduled to fight Felix, Okay, I'm saying that right. Who is Victor Drago, but it's played by, not sure, gets attacked, severely injured. Damien pressures Donnie to make him the challenger. Under the weight of guilt over Damien's incarceration and the fact that he didn't keep in touch, Donnie makes Damien the new challenger in the title fight. Damien fights dirty and wins, and it comes to light that he arranged the attack on Victor Drago. Damien was pretending to be a gracious friend and had let go of the past, but actually, he's quite bitter and was out for revenge the entire time. At the same time, Donnie's mother has a second stroke and dies. For Donnie, the only way to set things right is to come out of retirement to fight Damien. Bianca, who has become a very successful record producer, is not supportive, but she comes around. Damien and Donnie fight in a well-publicized Battle of Los Angeles at Dodger Stadium. The fight is grueling and emotional and goes to the final round, but Donnie knocks Damien out to regain his title. After the fight, the men talk and essentially forgive each other, acknowledging the pain they were both grappling with could not be pinned on the other. The end.
Wow. So y'all, that is the 3 Creed movies. Yes. Now, you know, we have a tradition of when we do like a whole franchise with multiple movies, we take one vote and decide whether that entire franchise is a classic from the right perspective. And I'm just checking in, but I'm assuming we're going to do that again, right?
Oh, yeah.
We got to vote on this all 3.
I agree.
Absolutely.
And I will also tell you, this is the time I'm not decided yet. I'm
struggling a little bit too, bro.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how this conversation plays out.
I'm not struggling.
Yeah.
We know.
You said you're not struggling, sis?
We know
I'm not struggling at all. There's no struggle. And as a matter of fact, we just need to start this conversation off with a list of beautiful people that are in all 3 of these movies. You want to know?
Go for
Very
it.
good.
Michael B.
Michael B. Jordan.
That was the point. But
that was the point. Michael B. Jordan.
Uh-huh.
You're gorgeous. Jonathan Majors. You're gorgeous. Wood Harris. You're gorgeous. Tessa Thompson. You're gorgeous. Phylicia Rashad. You're gorgeous.
So this is about the movie, though.
And really, all of the fighters, I gotta say.
Every last one of them.
Every last
Drago,
one.
I don't know your real name, honey. You are gorgeous. The one that played Felix, hello. You're gorgeous. Your mama, gorgeous.
Yeah.
But what does this have to do with the plot?
It has to do with
about casting. This is about casting.
Okay, all right.
That's a fancy word for it. I'm just talking about who's fine up in this movie.
I would call this the casting segment.
Brittany's deserving to be obstinate today. She's not. I don't disagree with anything you just said, by the way. Which is,
I didn't think you did.
Yeah, okay? I mean, it's true. It's true.
He's the one who plays his daughter in the 3rd one. Cutie little girl. Gorgeous.
She did a good job too.
I am going to find her name.
They talk about how she's feisty.
Her name is Mila Davis Kent, who plays Amara Creed in the 3rd one.
She's so sweet.
Oh,
she's so cute.
So cute.
Listen, okay? And I'm pretty sure I'm missing somebody. But just know that as soon as I figure out who's on this finger, you're there.
They're gorgeous too.
Gorgeous. So thank you, casting.
Yeah. And you know what? Job. Since we're talking about casting, are these people beautiful? Yes, they are. But I would also say that they're not beautiful in a way that makes them unbelievable. You know, I think we've all seen those movies where it's like they're obviously just trying to cast everybody good looking, and they have let some other things go, like the ability to portray the characters. Okay.
No.
to act, you know, and that was not the case here. You know, in my opinion, I feel like in general, the acting was really, really strong.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, and even down to like, I think about like, you know, one of the things that was true of the Rocky franchise that I have found to be true, in my opinion, in the Creed franchise as well, is that we get to understand these fighters as people that fight for a living, And in some cases, they are fighting, and part of their motivation is like personal demons. But in most cases, these are people that are fighting as their job. And so that allows us to get a chance.
And at least the people around them.
Right. So we're watching a business, little, like they're like, individual business entities, and we get to understand the nuance of who they are as individuals, separate from the person they are when they're fighting in the ring. And so because they gave us a chance to see that depth, those actors had to they had to act. They didn't just have to fight. And I thought casting was really good, frankly, in all three. I would found my top anybody.
I found the 10th. Russell Hornsby. Gorgeous.
Brittany's adding to her gorgeous.
Russell Hornsby.
But I'm saying that's what makes these movies so good when we're talking about the formula. Because the formula is, or part of the formula at least, is that you're going to have the dramatic part of the movie.
That's right.
That's actually not action really at all. It's like, and then at some point there's a switch and it goes all action, but it's like through that. But the funny thing is the drama makes the action part better because you can, they took the time to build all the emotions behind why they're, where they're at the action climax of the movie. So I'm just saying you couldn't have that if you didn't have good actors.
Yeah. Well, think about that. With the acting in the ring, that's choreography.
Absolutely.
So to be able to pull off that you're getting punched in the face, the timing has to be perfect. It's such an art and skill, like to pretend like that is happening. Now I'm sure some punches probably accidentally landed.
I did read that.
Oh yeah,
they always.
I'm pretty sure. Okay, I didn't mean to. My bad.
There was a lot, but what? Y'all are playing boxing. I mean, there's going to be some, especially. That's one thing that did get pretty much consistently better was the cinematography around the fights. And I don't know. I feel like we should just bebop and Scott over all three of these movies. But I don't necessarily agree with the cinematography choices in Creed 3. But I will say
more about that, bro. Because I know I didn't read much about it, but I know that they did introduce like some IMAX kind of, like they
I was okay with the IMAX.
Okay.
It's just that, okay, I'm gonna just tell you that Creed 1 and 2, I love. Hands down. They follow the formula, and Rocky is one of those movies I want to see the formula. I want to see the montage. I want to see the emotions leading up to whatever is going to happen. There's going to be a down point in the montage. There's going to be a get back up point in the montage. I want to see all of that. I want to see the get knocked down point in the fight. I want to see the comeback point in the fight. And one thing that I love about all the Rocky movies is we're talking about the cinematography and what Brittany was talking about, the choreography gets better and better. But one thing that is true about all of the fights, they were all brutal. Every single last one of them, up until Creed 3, which is supposed to be the culmination of all of the fights.
You didn't think those fights were brutal?
The main fight was not brutal. They walked out of the ring. He was playing with his daughter, which was a sweet moment, but there was supposed to be too much blood in the ring for playing around and stuff.
There is a point where they make the entire Dodger Stadium empty, and all you're seeing is Donnie and Dame in the ring. No one is around, no one is there. And when Dame is looking over at Donnie, behind Donnie is a jail cell. So he's thinking about the 18 years that he spent in prison for having this gun and feeling partly like you're the reason I went to jail for 18 years because I was protecting you from getting beat up. Then for Donnie, he's looking over at Dame, and behind Dame, he sees a mattress that is tied up that they used to box and practice on. And you just get very minor flashbacks within the mind of Dame and Donnie, where their abuser, which is the person that Donnie was beating up, their foster parent, he would come in and he was antagonizing them. Oh, you want to fight? All these different things, and
he would beat
them up,
physically abuse them.
He would physically abuse them. And so you're seeing Donnie, who at this point has not really talked about his past, not even with his now wife, about this. Is just something that it happened and I'm letting it go, but really he hasn't. Because behind Dame is that one of those tied up mattresses that he is fighting against. That mattress, he's fighting against this piece of his childhood that was treacherous. And so this movie did something that I thought was also super amazing, just watching two men that are processing through the best way they know how to forget something, but really they haven't forgotten. They're just ignoring. And they're not moving through it. They're trying to go around it. They're trying to go under it. They're trying to go over it. But in this moment, they're having to go through it, because now I'm trying to fight the person that I believe you're the reason why I went to prison. I'm fighting you, and you represent everything from my past that I thought I forgot. Everything that I've been trying to stay away from. My dad, he died, but either way, didn't like he wanted me anyway. My biological mom is not here. I was raising this family, and something that never sat well with me in any of the Creed movies was that we didn't see Phylicia, Marianne's two older children. Because I'm like, did these children just disappear?
Huge plot hole.
That was the biggest gap.
And one thing that Donnie says to Marianne as he's like processing this thing, he's like, your two older kids, they never treated me like I was their brother. And so these are the things that are going on in their mind. So I can see exactly what you're saying, bro, when you say, because I didn't even look at it like that. You know, if anybody has listened to our podcast, even for one episode, I'm always like, oh my God, touchy feely, what happened? And so, because eventually I'm going to be the one talking about the whole romance. Get into it in a minute. But just in terms of, but in that, I'm just like, I wasn't even thinking about them not fighting. I'm thinking about, dang, they have so much going on. So much that they're trying to process through, but it wasn't one of those violent, like pick them up, my arm is now part of my forehead type of fights.
You're raising a question that I had mentioned briefly when we were in the green room before we started recording, which is like about like, I have been thinking of the Rocky franchise as something as separate. And then this is the Creed franchise. But when you kind of read about it online, some people are considering the Creed movies just a part of the Rocky franchise.
I mean, that's how I look at it.
Okay. Yeah, see, I think of them as separate. Well, how about you, sis? Do you think of them as separate, or is this just one long franchise?
I think of them as perpendicular. It's like Creed is adjacent to Rocky, right? And I feel like Creed 3 rock with me here.
You when you're being difficult and
rock with me here. It's not difficult.
I see what you're saying, but
what I hear you saying, I feel like Creed 3 is moving you into Adonis. Like we're moving out of Rocky into, because at some point, I mean, we know something. I don't think Sylvester Stallone has any plan on leaving the planet, but it in terms of like this story, at some point, somebody has to be able to pick it up and carry it and it just be about them. And so I feel like Creed 3, although I'm sure there's like a whole bunch of politics behind a bunch of stuff, but I feel like Creed 3 was a representation of that now we are moving into Adonis, Donnie Johnson, Creed story of saying, this is his life. This is what he's going through. You know, Bianca is his Adrian. You know, you have Lil Duke, you know, he has his own Duke. You know what I mean? Like he has moved into this space of also, because he is retired at the beginning of Creed 3, you hear him saying things that are the essence of a Rocky, which are, yeah, you fight with your body, but it's with your mind, which we know for Rocky, many of the things that he was saying were the essence of Mick. And so I think about how characters have to evolve and move forward and know that certain characters, and this is just in real life, are not going to always be there. And so I think about that part. Like, I feel like Rocky, you know, Creed 3 is moving away from having the Rocky character still be as important. Not that he's not, but yeah.
That's what I expected. But I, as a fan of the franchise, still wanted to feel the feels that I feel in these movies. And I didn't get them.
Wow.
It does feel like a different kind of movie. And if that is what they're moving in towards, I'm just saying I'm going to be less of a fan of the franchise. Wow. Because that's not what I'm watching Rocky for. Just like I still watch Fast and Furious movies. I love them because they are ridiculous and they don't care. They're doing what we do. They're doing, like, there was always this joke around, like, yo, at some point they're going to put a car in space. And guess what they did last time? They just put a car in space. You know why? Because we're just doing what we do. We're in our space. And when you're coming to a Fast and Furious movie, you know it's going to be a certain thing. And that's what I like about that. I'm just saying, if we're getting into a little more touchy-feely of these movies, that's just, I like touchy-feely all the way through. Like, that's what made it special. Give me the foundation of why everybody is going so crazy. Why is everybody going so hard? But when it switches, and in this one, I'm early on in this movie because if you remember, and I'm talking about Creed 3, when Dame fought
Donnie or Felix?
Felix. When he fought Felix, think about how at the end of that fight, it was so brutal that
Felix was broken.
And they had to, Bianca had to take the daughter out.
But you know,
now, let me just finish one thought. That was the earlier fight. How is it that the end fight, and I heard all what you're saying about, sure, it all makes sense. I'm just saying it didn't give me, because I'm like, yo, if that's how this fight's going to be.
But the earlier fight, bro, the earlier fight, it was, in some ways, it was, again, I do think the movies followed the formula, but I think that first fight was also a slight, you know, they walked the line really carefully, because the fights that we have seen have been respectful fighters, with the exception of the street fight that happened in Rocky V. Mm-hmm. Anytime people were fighting in the ring, they were following the rules of fighting in the ring, right? Even in Rocky IV, where Drago was a steroid monster, you know, that killed somebody, it wasn't like he was breaking the rules of what was supposed to be happening in the ring. Whereas Dame was really breaking the rules. This ref was not on it, because if the ref had been on it, he would have been like, this is not how you fight, you know? And so, yes, that fight was vicious, but it was vicious in a way that we have not appreciated. But they had to do it because what they were trying to show is this is not a polished fighter. This is somebody who has just been, he had great origin story in terms of his fighting training, but he for 18 years has not been getting great top-notch training for fighting. And now he wants to be a part of the machine of boxing when he ain't been in it. And so they had to show a disconnect between how he showed up and what was supposed to happen. That's why Felix got beat so bad. It was because Felix was following the rules. He was fighting the way you're supposed to fight.
And what I'm saying is, yes, that's why
that's why it was so brutal. It was still for the emotional backstory.
all right, yes. And what I'm saying is, that's why for me, this was it was an opportunity to do something so great, because what where I thought it was going was, now you show what type of fighter Dame is. And then the training was going to be Adonis learning how to counter, but also realizing that he was going to have to get into that space as well, which was going to yield an epic battle for the ages.
Yeah.
Like, so I'm saying, yes, that's what you feel. It's like this scene is setting up for me, and apparently I spoke to several of my Rocky compatriots. We all feel the same way. But outside of us, I'm saying, I know that the arc it makes sense. But to me, as a Rocky movie, I'm looking at that fight like, yo, he's going to have to learn how to fight this dude this way.
It feels like we do need to go back though and talk about the first Creed movie, and the second, and I'm thinking about the first Creed movie in particular right now, because what we got to see in the first Creed movie was really, it was the same thing. It was
as Rocky one.
Well, absolutely. And I was thinking that there was a big parallel, because this was Donnie coming to Rocky to kind of say, I'm ready. Put me in, coach. And you ain't ready, Donnie. Okay, because you have been fighting in the shadows. Okay, you've been coaching yourself, and you're not as polished as you think you are. You think you're ready to go. So there was also a little humbling that Donnie had to go through at the beginning of his relationship with Rocky. Now he was willing to do it though. He wanted to learn, he wanted to be better, but he did have to have a little reality check, in that first movie about you ain't as buttoned up as you think you are. The other thing, and again, it is why I think for me, this started to feel like a separate franchise, because, and I really appreciated your framing, Brittany, about how there was a handoff to somebody else to keep it going. But in that handoff, I felt it so clearly in the first Creed movie, because of the way that it is so obviously not a story about Rocky. They have an important couple of storylines for him that they play out, meaning he does get sick with cancer in that first movie. He is really missing his son and realizing, like, I have done something, things have happened, and I have not done my part to try to get this relationship restored. So they have Rocky grappling with some things, but he is more of a secondary character than he's ever been. I mean, these movies are about Adonis. I guess what I'm wondering is if you all also felt a shift in that movie to things becoming a little bit more cerebral.
No, I did. In that one, I didn't. Because I still liked the training montages in Creed. I still liked
what about all these layers though, with Donnie, like trying to understand who he is, and
those were all nice additions, but they still gave me all what I wanted.
I totally see what you're saying, because I even think about, like, in Creed 2, again, just in terms of like the progression of how they keep the layers going. And again, the Rocky movies always had layers, okay? But the Creed movies, to me, are much more complex. I just feel like they are much more complex. So, like, for the Creed, the second movie, I mean, this is literally like the man who killed Donnie's father has now built his son.
Such a good story.
For the express purpose of coming to beat down Donnie, and so this is supposed to be Rocky in Donnie's corner. So this is the man who killed Rocky's best friend, Donnie's father coming back with his son to try to pick up the fight. I mean,
right.
that was such like that choice. It was so complicated. And then they even went as far as to have Drago's son, Victor, they put so many layers in that character where, you know, Ivan Drago for all these years had just been building up resentment because his loss to Rocky had taken away everything. His marriage, his legacy in Russia. They had actually kicked him out, and they were now in Ukraine, kind of like estranged from their family, from everything. And he was so bitter that he was forcing his son to try to somehow, you know, regain some legacy. So I just feel like the Creed movies are different in the way that they are adding so much more complexity. So that's why that third fight in Creed 3, it was so complex.
Yeah, and I'm saying no. Let's stay on 2.
I got on one complex.
Let's stay on 2 because they gave all of that, right? But they also had Rocky with that huge medicine ball hitting Adonis in the stomach until he threw up. Oh, boom! They also had a tire in the middle of the ring. Like, ain't this where the fight is at? Well, you put your foot in this tire and stand in front of this mountain and just keep fighting until you can last.
And get beat by it till you can handle it.
When Adonis was running behind the car and he fell and he just had nothing left. Rocky ain't get out. He was just looking at him like, get up, kid. Get up, kid. And then you hear the music and he's like, oh. Yes. So give me all the multi-layers that Janai is going to love while we're in the movie theater, but also give me hitting you with the medicine ball until you throw up. I need both. And then at the end, think about the fight. He was so messed up. He couldn't even. Drago broke his ribs again. He was purposely pulled his arm up like, bow! And they were showing the hits so good. And at the end of Rocky 2, he was hanging on the rope because he couldn't even move. He was like, blah, 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 three. And Rocky, in Creed 2. In Creed 1, his eye, no, was that Creed 2? Which one was Rocky patting him on the back of the head?
That was Rocky. That was the first one.
That was the first
Creed.
one, right?
Yeah. And it wasn't Rocky backing him, but it was a Stitch. It was Stitch. It was one of the two that was on the back of his head. And
I was so shut. And he was not. The ref would not have let him fight if he couldn't prove that he could see. And Stitch helped him to cheat the ref as if he could see.
I guess I'm just saying, I would expect the storytelling to grow, which it has. I would expect that. But I just wouldn't want to lose I don't want to lose my Rocky feels.
I was laughing. I was saying jokes to myself as I was rewatching Creed 2 for this review, because when Ivan said to Victor, you know, they took everything from us. Your mother left you, all this different stuff. My response, I was like, Victor, you need to tell him that was you. You need therapy, because they didn't do that to me. They did that to you. And now you got me out here running in.
And he does try to push back a little. He
does. That was a very complex relationship.
He does push back. He's like, Dad, why are you fighting to get back to these people that hate you and that hurt you?
They were at dinner when his mama walked in, and she didn't take the short way to the seat.
That's right.
She walked all the way around
all
the table to sit down in front of them. I said, oh, no, she won't.
Yes, she did.
And yes, she did.
And think about that arc.
That Brigitte Nielsen, can we shout her out as another beautiful person?
Yeah.
Because she is aging well.
Eat it, honey.
And that arc with Drago, with Victor and his son at the end, where you see him go through that, he sees his son is in trouble. And instead of being like everybody was to him, he's like, look, it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
In the towel.
that was just dope.
We got
that
to see
was
an
dope.
arc in that character. That was
dope
powerful.
storytelling, man. That was dope storytelling.
Something I feel like both franchises have, even if it's supposed to be one, the Rocky with the adjacent Creed
Right, with
franchise.
the right. The perpendicular.
Exactly. This theme of respect, where, okay, you beat my ass. Now, I respect.
Yeah.
It's not. So I think about how Donnie beat up Victor at the end of Creed 2. And now Victor is coming back to help him train, because he's like, I'm still tall, I'm still Victor, and I'm still like a mountain that you're going to have to beat up.
Yep.
And so he comes back, and Victor is disappointed in how Donnie is fighting. Like, can we just stop this? This is terrible. Like, I'm beating him up. And then, of course, Donnie has that moment where he comes back to himself, and he's like, let's keep going. And then he punches Victor, and Victor smiles. I was like,
okay,
I love
he's
this
getting it back
here.
together.
That part,
my ass now. This is great.
Yeah, you're getting it, buddy.
So I appreciate that. Well, when they were sparring, so just this theme that they had sewn through both of these is just respect. And I'm mad at you forever now. I don't want to be your friend no more. It's like all of a sudden we are friends. You have to cook out. You know, you're when you see each other, it's respect. How are things going? How you been? Da, da, da. It's not anything that is like some form of malice. And what I also love about these movies is that they show when you harbor that, how it does not make for a good person, a good character, or a good fighter. Because while it is quite physical and it can be very dangerous, it's also very mental. Because now I'm walking away. At one point, was this 3 or was it 2, where Donnie was watching how someone was beating him up? No, it was a dame that was watching how when he was, or maybe it was Donnie, he was getting beat up, and he was watching how every time someone punched him, their whole side of his body was empty.
Yeah, it was Donnie. It was the beginning. It was the beginning of 3.
Of 3.
We were watching Donnie zero in on opportunity.
Yeah, where he sees the look to side open.
And he's like, okay, got it. So, and I was just like, okay, I appreciate them showing that part of like, this is more than that. This is more than that.
There was something really wonderful that happened in this movie, in this franchise, the very first Creed, that I just thought was so well done, and it was, they answered the question that we thought we'd never get an answer to, which was what happened in the private fight between Rocky and Apollo. And sis, I hadn't made a note to talk about it in the podcast, but when you were just talking about like the respect that the players, that the fighters had for each other, and how they respected each other as fighters, and that was their jobs, but then they could have a relationship that was separate. So we know at the end of Rocky 3 that Apollo challenged Rocky to a fight, just the two of them. And only the two of them were there. There were no spectators, okay? But Donnie learned about this fight, obviously from Marianne, He learned about this fight. And so when he does...
Well, it seemed like lore, like it's something that kind of was in the ethos that people in the know.
Maybe. I gotta tell you, I felt like...
Well, he said it was a rumor.
Rocky was surprised that he knew. Rocky was like, who told you about that? So it felt like it wasn't something that was out there. But you could be right, bro, But Donnie was like, who won that fight between you? Who won that third fight between you and my dad? Who won? And Rocky goes, your dad, Creed. Creed won. So anyway,
can I tell you one thing I felt from that scene as I watched it for the second time? The first time I watched it, I felt like he was saying it was Creed who won. The second time, I was like, he might have just been saying that.
Rocky doesn't just say stuff, bro. That ain't who he is. He ain't politicking.
I don't think it would have been a politicking situation. I think that and this might be a moment I'm digging too deep. Okay. I'm just saying.
Never. Impossible.
I'm just saying, when I
Here's
watched
a
it,
shovel.
when I watched it, I just felt like in that moment, he was either going to leave it ambiguous or say that your dad won, because that's what, for example, let's say the fight between them, I think if he clearly lost, he would have said, Apollo won. But let's say the fight between them was a little more ambiguous, like, you know what I'm saying? It wasn't a clear, defined winner between the two. I could see him saying that Creed won in that example.
So y'all, if we're wrapping the conversation on fighting, I think we've pretty much done it, but we should just clearly wrap on the Adonis character's arc related to fighting. He starts out very clearly fighting because something in him, he is a natural fighter. Again, because he was fighting even before he found out his family legacy of being of fighting.
Yeah.
So there was something in him he was a fighter. And then he does successfully professionalize as a fighter. Moving into the second movie, he is really reaching pinnacles, of fighting. Okay. And by the third, he has defended his title. He's had 2 titles at this point, because he definitely had the light heavyweight title. Then he had the heavyweight title, and he's defended them both. He moved on. By the third movie, he had actually retired and was now focusing on business enterprises. When he gets drawn back in, because Damien comes out the shadows with all of his nefarious activities.
Sorry. It isn't a fair.
But by the end of that third movie, he has retired again, right? Didn't they say that? Did he say, I'm going back into retirement?
Yeah, I felt like this was supposed to be. Yeah, I felt like this was supposed to be wrapping up that story.
And at the same time, you hear rumors of a Creed 4. And by rumors, they're pretty much saying it in interviews. They're saying...
Well, the only sequel that doesn't make money is the last one.
There you go. There you go. There you go.
Wow.
So I just wanted to comment on that arc of his fighting, to see if y'all had anything to say on that before we move away from the fighting.
I will say, just in terms of fighting, I don't know if this has so much to do with that arc, but I think about, we know that Adonis was a fighter when he was younger. He's fighting for his life, respect, all those things. But his daughter, listen here, that little girl,
she ain't playing.
She was drawing a picture, minding her own business. A little bully came over to her. This is why they were in school. Took her picture for whatever reason and ripped it in half. That
she
Amara,
didn't miss a beat.
She knocked the taste out of her. Okay. And so it's something about what Rocky and Creed, these movies almost show it has to be in you. It's something where it's not necessarily a DNA thing, right? But it's just something that's in you. But also, fighter, what does fighter look like? Bianca was not a fighter, a physical fighter, but she had something that she had to fight through to continue to move through her passion. So what fighting looks like, it looks like something different for everybody. But every last one of us, we're fighting something. Whether it's to move forward, whether it's a habit that we're trying to break, whether it's something we're trying to conquer. Whether my sister and I, we were talking about this the other day, or it was probably yesterday, and I was like, man, I just feel like I got to do these certain things every day or I'm going to get off. And she was just like, that's what they talk about, people who are highly successful. They do this thing every day. And so I just that part of just the fighting, that's something else I would want to mention, just how I feel like Creed 4 is going to be like her 10 years later in the ring and her dad is on the side, which is moving you into something we haven't seen in any of these movies, which is female boxing, which is a thing. And so to maybe Creed 4 will pay, homage to that, part.
I
That's
did love
happening.
in Creed 2 and 3, they started to introduce women into the space.
Mhm.
Even just on the side as sparring partners and being present like in the ring for sparring purposes and training purposes. So it's like they are evolving with the times.
Yeah.
And so I did notice that.
And as
they're creating
announcers.
space for that daughter. You were taking us to the next one of Donnie's critical relationships, which was his relationship with Bianca.
Yes. I think it's important because, again, if we're talking about how Creed is adjacent to Rocky, Adrian and Rocky was a huge part of every Rocky movie, even after she passed. Even at the beginning in Creed 1, Adrian was still present because Rocky was still going to see her at the gravesite.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think in Creed 1 and 2, it shows him at her gravesite.
Oh, yeah.
And so something that Rocky, which we talked about, what was huge for that was family. And as you see, it's the same for Adonis. Adonis is very huge on anyone that he holds close. And he almost can't function when someone that he holds close, that relationship is not going well. And he needs those things. And so I appreciated them meeting each other. Philly became a part of the story in Creed 1. Philly was a character in Creed 1 and Creed. And so I appreciated how they met. You just got this neighbor, they got some loud music. You're trying to sleep. That's such a real thing. You go knock on the door. Can you please turn this down, please?
Right.
But you're caught off guard because you're not thinking it's going to be this beautiful person opening the door. And so as you're getting a chance to see this relationship start to develop, them just going out and getting something to eat, they're starting to learn about each other. He sees her face on a flyer. He goes to her concert. He sees that she sings. And I just appreciate like this neighbor to friend, to girlfriend, to fiance, to wife, to mother of child story that they have progressed through all of the movies. But even in that, the complexity of what happens in love, they've been together for years at this point. And even in Creed 3, it's showing how you could be with somebody for years and still not know. And still not know some key things about them. Not because they're just like purposefully not trying to tell you, but they themselves don't even want to remember. They just want to forget, or they don't even want to acknowledge it. And so I appreciated that moment after Marianne's funeral. They were sitting in Marianne's room and they were talking, and Bianca just confesses like, I enjoy music. I love being a producer, a songwriter, but it's a struggle for me to not sing anymore. Like that part of me, like that hurts. And then Donnie then finally opening up, because they had an argument earlier in the movie about him not opening up. He finally opens up and talks about what it was like being in the foster care system and what it was like pre-Marianne. And then even though you're talking to him, you still know some other parts of the movie where you hear him say to Marianne, your two kids, they never treated me like a sibling. And then you have also that Marianne hid some things from him, which is part of the anguish between him and Dame. Dame was writing him from prison, and he was never getting any of the letters because Marianne hid them from him, because Marianne didn't want him to have that part of his life anymore.
And I don't
go ahead.
I don't think they explored that enough. That was another, that to me, that was a major plot point. That should have been you just not going to give me these letters. Like, I felt like that got glossed over, and that should have been dug into a little more.
And I think part of he was afraid to get into it because of her stroke and her being sickly. But another part of me was like, yeah, this is deep. And are we ever going to have these other two children?
Yeah.
Be anywhere in this
that
movie?
was before you could just, we all know how life happens. And sometimes you're just estranged, not for anything specific, but for them not to be at the funeral,
That was
something
weird.
would have happened that something of a big magnitude should have happened. Like if they would have just had them there, then
If we had just seen one awkward exchange, that would have been
or
enough.
them,
Just to know that they were
even
there.
See them standing there, you know they're there, and then you're like, okay, well, they weren't close, but
yeah,
it's
for
the
them
mom.
not to be at the funeral.
Yeah.
I mean,
I didn't even notice that they weren't there. Yo.
that was
I noticed. I
huge.
noticed big time.
Crazy. I didn't even notice that.
But since you started the conversation about Bianca, and I wanted to make sure we finish that conversation, you know, that Bianca character, she had something though that Adrian, again, just in terms of these movies being more complex, she had something that Adrian never really had, which was her own development. You know, some could say that Adrian developed in terms of like she was like not speaking her mind at all at the beginning of the first movie, and by the end was the end of her life, the end of our relationship with her, she was able to say clearly her needs to her husband. But you know, there was a more significant arc that I think Tessa Thompson's character Bianca went through, and that was us watching her grapple with her progressive hearing loss as a professional, watching her grapple with falling in love and being in a relationship at a time where she clearly did not intend for that to happen because she was focused on other things, even becoming pregnant at a time where for her was not convenient. Her career was picking up. She had just got signed to a label. Now she found out she's pregnant. Okay. And so, and then in the last movie, we're watching her, her hearing has deteriorated to the point where she now is producing other people to do her music because it's just a practical thing to do because of where she is in her hearing journey. And she even had to watch her child be born with a level of deafness. And I'm not sure if she's completely deaf, because we know she had hearing aids.
Completely deaf.
Okay, because when she was a baby, they had put hearing aids.
They had hearing aids,
which made me feel like she had some ability to hear, you know, but
they were probably trying at least.
Yeah, maybe they were still trying to figure out what was, but yeah, by the time she's like a young lady, you know, a little girl, it's like she was signing, she was completely deaf, it seemed. And so Bianca, we got to watch her deal with all of that. We also learned backstory about her, which was about her family not being alive and present, you know, and her finding family in Phylicia Rashad's character. She didn't have no mother figure nowhere, and she was going through everything she was going through, you know. And then again, dealing with this husband who had clear communication challenges.
They mentioned the aunt in Creed too, but
okay,
but it's not like
not a strong relationship, like a very present. So I thought that I just appreciated that they didn't have her there, because Adrian, for me, and you know, I don't have to recap what I said in the last podcast. That character of Adrian, it felt like for me, the purpose of her was to be a motivating factor for Rocky, and to then be a barrier that he would need to overcome emotionally when he wanted to fight sometimes. It felt like that was all she ever did. Whereas I feel like Bianca had a well-rounded character that was participating in Donnie's life in a much fuller way. And that's just that. I just feel like they really elevated love interest in the Creed franchise over what they did in the Rocky franchise.
Is what I think about. I think about that Adrian was important, you know, and she had her own story in a way of what was in her community and what was, you know, for her generation. But I think that Bianca's character is coming up in a different time.
Such a good point.
And in a different space, you know, and I think that a level of independence that she had, you know, was just a different than what an Adrian would have. I hate to compare their stories because they're just so different, but they're the same in the sense that they both love hard and they both were looking to support the men that they were with. Whether it was having a hard conversation like, get it together, or if it was having a, I love you so much and I am here for you, or if it was, I don't want you to fight, but I know you got to do what you got to do. Whether it was any of those conversations, there was always a support system that was there. And there was also for the men as well. I'm not getting angry with you because you're sharing your opinion with me. I'm not so mad now that I'm just going to go out and be destructive. Like, there wasn't that type of reaction. There was a safe space that was happening to be able to express what was going on. I want to make sure that I do come home after this fight. And I want to just give my children or my child a better life than I had. I don't want them to ever have to worry about the same things that I had to worry about. And so I appreciate that about, that. And then even just them being on the rings, on the sideline, sitting and watching the fights. I can't imagine sitting and watching someone I'm in love with getting the snot beat out of them. Okay. You're sitting over on the side. Now your eye is as big as somebody's hand. Like, I can't imagine the type of anguish that is, but you want them to know you have my full support and I'm here. And at the end of all the fights, Bianca was making her way right into that ring to hug him and to be right there, right by his side. And so I loved that. I love their
she even sang his entrance on his big fight. She sang his entrance song.
Well, in two, it too. That was another. Like how he came out. Two was good.
Which that is something I appreciate about all these movies, where it's like these entrances,
because the theatrical piece of the of the boxing world,
and that's how it is.
I don't watch any of that. Like, I probably watched wrestling a little bit when we were growing up, but that's completely different. But I've never actually sat and watched a full, this person versus that person. I'll see the commercials, I'll see all those different ads and stuff like that, but I've never watched a fight. And so I was like, is this something they do in the movies? Oh, like, or is this really what happens?
And I feel like that. they were very they show how it is in the progression of that. Because, like, if you notice how, like, when Clubber came out, and it's different than when you're in Creed 2 and Adonis is coming out. But if you look at how boxers come out nowadays, it's very and that's why too was very realistic in the terms of the feel around. And like,
because when Felix came out and they had all that smoke,
it was
so cool.
And the other one in the first one, when Pretty Ricky came out, he had to do shoot fire, and so that's all like how those would be.
I love that. Put a
coming
show.
out, and that was another part that was for me lacking.
Because the fight could just last 2 rounds, and now we done. You need a little bit of show at the beginning.
And well, honestly, usually that's like the 4th or 5th fight of the night, and so even if it was short,
they've seen other fights.
It's just like, like when you were watching the Tyson fight, when you were watching the Tyson fight back in the day, you didn't expect, you were disappointed if it went, more than 2 or 3 rounds. So like you were expecting it to be like faster. When Tyson was about to fight, it's like, all right, no,
watch real quick.
Don't go to popcorn. don't be going to the bathroom. Like, this is the main event. But they what I'm saying is that was another part that I feel like they missed. And I think I heard this right. But like when Creed was walking in Creed 3 when he was walking up to the ring, and he was walking up, I think he said, I'm going to defend my name. And it was just, I'm hoping I heard that wrong. Because I'm like, that was incredibly corny. The way that.
I hope not.
Yeah. But even, they didn't even have the Let's Get Ready to Rumble do. And like,
I wondered if he had passed away.
That's what I thought. I was like, oh my
Huh?
God, he did.
I
mean,
guessed.
he
Let me
Oh,
did.
Google
no.
real quick.
His name is,
Tom.
no, Michael Buffer. Michael Buffer.
Dan.
Yeah. So I'm just saying
No, he's 78.
yeah,
And he is not aging, honey. I don't know what kind of Botox he's getting.
He's rich. But that like that.
And his
Let's
job
Get Ready to
isn't super
Rumble.
stressful. That's like he
He
says a couple
He
sentences.
sleeps in the freezer.
Oh yeah. But that's his intellectual property. Let's Get Ready to Rumble.
Wow.
So that's why in every major fight he's there. And there's no way that this fight would be going on and he's not announcing. Like that just, so that also kind of took me out of it.
His net worth, according to celebritynetworth.com, is $400 million.
Yeah. Because he won that. He won you being able to use that for his own intellectual property. But I'm just saying the whole way he was walking up was another issue that I didn't like. It didn't give me the feeling. It made me, he didn't feel like he was ready to go to war.
Okay.
Like I didn't feel like he was ready to go to war. You remember in Rocky 3 when he did the stare off with Clubber Lang? The second one, like the first one, he was a little nervous. But the second one, he was like, he just stone cold, like, I don't got nothing more to say.
That's because he had been out in LA with the brothers. He was like, I know what to do now. I'm not concerned about you.
Right.
I didn't feel Eye of the Tigerish.
But what you did feel was growing on. The version of it with Janae Aiko and Donald Glover.
Yeah, and that was.
I've been listening to that. I forgot about it.
I really enjoyed all of the entrances. I really did. I liked them
phonetically. They have good music, but what I would have liked to see, and again, this is what I would have liked to see. I would have liked to see the new getting stronger for the Creed phase of this franchise. You know, like the version that when you hear it, it's like when you hear like it's just, it doesn't matter what you're doing. It doesn't matter.
And like, they paid on. They used it, and I think it was in the first Creed. They did do a
in
version
the second
of
one
it.
too.
Yeah,
the second one too.
Yeah,
and I would have. I'm saying I didn't want them to play that, but I wanted them. I wanted to feel that feeling with the version of whatever they created. That is like, when you hear it, it's not even the Rocky song, but when you hear it, people are like, oh, that's the Rocky, you know, like I wanted to hear that.
Well, I will tell you this. They didn't create a new song for us to be like, oh, that's the Creed song. But I will say that,
however,
I will say that the music though, like especially in Creed 3, I gotta tell you, there were some parts, especially like during that last fight, there were some parts where I was like, I had the same feeling that I have when I'm listening to like the Lion King soundtrack, where it's not the part that is a song that has lyrics and all of that, you know, it's just that good score and happening in the background.
Horns.
Where I was just like, this is
epic, are so good,
beautiful, amazing music. I am so emotionally involved, and I know the music is doing this to me. I thought the music was very well done.
Whenever music wants to hype me up, I go with it.
Totally. And even just the different entrance songs that they picked for the different fighters, I thought all of that was exciting.
Yeah, the music was good. I just would like my Creed version of.
I thought, but I see.
And I'm just saying, I like when you hear that, kind of like, there are certain people
same.
who are associated with songs, and I would have just,
Yeah, that was a missed opportunity to create something where we're like, oh,
even
now
if
Michael B. Jordan's
what
coming.
I would have liked to hear, I would have liked to hear the dun, 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 but they got so many great musicians working on this movie that I would have just like it started off like that, and maybe there was a little trap beat coming in. Like you remember Knuck If You Buck, something like that. And then it just transferred into this new thing that was going to be the thing that we hear whenever it's time for a Creed to get down. That's what I was wanting. And whereas, because we all talk about music a lot, because all of us love music. And so like, there's no denying that it was great musically. But I just didn't get that.
Brittany had brought up the relationship with Phylicia Rashad. One of the big things, and actually, so just to talk through the arc with Phylicia Rashad, she is aware of this child that is from her husband's extramarital affair, and she finds him and takes him in. Now, we never have a period where we hear her talk through her complete why. But we do get a chance to see her essentially honoring her husband, her late husband, by trying to take care of this child who is Donnie, and then we watch her struggle with him being a fighter when clearly fighting took her husband from her. Yes, she now sees this young man doing this exact same thing. And again, we don't get an answer to what her other children are up to. No idea, but they're not fighters, we can assume, And then we see toward the end, they have a very strong relationship. She's very present even with the grandchild, very much they are in rhythm of life with Phylicia Rashad. We learn that she has had some health issues. And but even if she's had health issues, we have never, ever questioned like her having Donnie's back. And then we find out that Dame had been sending Donnie letters while he was incarcerated, and that she not only got them, she opened them and she kept them, but she never gave them to Donnie. And that was part of what fed Dame's resentment in the third movie. And that was the only time where we saw something in all these three movies. That was the only time we saw something in the Phylicia Rashad Donnie relationship where you started to wonder, did she have his back in the right way with that decision? And bro, that's what you were starting to talk about, I believe, was your perspective on the fact that she held those letters back from him.
Yeah, because Phylicia Rashad is, whatever you say about her, she's a phenomenal actor. Period.
Oh, hands down.
She is really good at acting, and she's a master at that. And there are two, I feel like, missed opportunities with Phylicia Rashad. In the second movie, I feel like it's tragic that there wasn't a conversation between Sylvester Stallone and Phylicia Rashad. I feel like that was a miss for them to hash out why he never contacted her. That would have been a really good scene. Like that would have been a really good scene. And it would have had to been long.
No.
But just to address the fact that, like, our lives are inextricably linked to each other. And you just haven't spoken to me in 20 years, I feel like that would have been a good thing. And the second thing, I would have liked to dig into that a little more. And I feel like it wouldn't have, the second thing is what you're talking about, the letters. And I don't feel like it would have been a stretch, because she could have just went into almost that she knew it might not have been the best decision. But at the time, she just wanted him to start a new chapter. She felt like it was better for him to cut ties. And even if you don't agree with her, you could see the thought process there. And if they would have dug into that a little, it would have made it make sense. And it also would have gave another layer of complexity, that even though in one way he could be mad, like you mad about me taking this fight? I wouldn't even be taking this fight if you had to hold these letters. You know, like all these things while she's dying. So it's like I can't even process all of that right now, because ultimately, so that could have given it another, you know, emotional spin that would have been very, very complex. That I just feel like they just missed that opportunity, man. Like I thought they were about to get into it, and they just didn't. You know,
I do like how she had those words on her deathbed, though. How she was like kind of going in and out of consciousness.
Yeah, that was good. That was a great scene.
Yeah,
that I would say that was up there with the Mick scene. That was up there. That was a good one. That was a good one.
You know, it's so interesting. James and I had a big debate on this one, because he felt like the fact that she kept those letters from Donnie was just really bad parenting. He felt strongly like that
I agree
is not the way to help the young man grapple with his past, to disconnect him from it.
Yeah.
And I felt completely different. I felt like she's in a situation where everything that this child has been through she's now got to raise this child that has all these demons, you know, and it's not necessarily things that she can even relate to. We don't really know her whole life story, but you know, we don't know the extent to which she can relate to what he's been through. But she knows he needs to heal. That's what she knows. And here you have a person that is writing your son letters from a correctional facility. I could see a mom saying, look, I don't know the nature of what this relationship was, but I know that this child needs to heal, and I need to surround him with that, you know?
I can tell you this, that would.
And we also don't know what was in those letters. That was something else James and I debated. Because you want to assume that the letters were like, hey, bro, I miss you. But the letters might have also been full of venom and jealousy. They could have been like, I can't, you know, or guilt trip. We don't even know what was in those letters.
Well, if that was the case, they should have addressed it. No matter what, I don't agree with her not keeping the letter. With her keeping the letters, I don't like that. Would be something that, in that circumstance, because there was such a ripple effect from her keeping the letters, that it would that's one of those things that would impact your relationship with your mother from that point forward. Like you as soon as you find out.
Yeah, she should have just threw them away at the time. I if she had just thrown them away, but for her to keep them and then show them.
But then it wouldn't have been part of the movie. It needed to be. It wouldn't have been part of the movie, because she should just die with that lie. But if I at whatever point I found that out, our relationship would be different from that point forward. Like, even if I didn't see the letters, like, that's just not how.
Doesn't a parent have a responsibility, though, to try to shield a child from some things? And it's all a judgment call. You're doing the best you can, but it's like you know.
What I would have done is I would have opened the letters. I would have read them. I would have read the letters with no intent of not giving it to my son. But if the letters were off the hook, I would say, look, these are the letters you got from your friend. And I realized I would talk to him about feeling that loyalty to him. And I would just describe that I understand your feelings, but this is a part of your life that if you continue, it's not going to end well. And so the reality is, I would want to raise a son who can read those letters and not be impacted in a negative way. And that's what I would want.
But she didn't get to raise him from zero. By the time she met him, he was already not a good communicator, very angry.
I felt like they addressed it a little bit, because I felt like she apologized for keeping them. There was a quick, she said that.
Yeah.
But I think, so I'm on the fence, I think this is
Yeah.
something that for parents, you know, you don't know what's going to send your kid to therapy, right? is the statement. You don't know what's going to set them off and be like, that ruined my existence. Like, you don't know. But in the moment, you're thinking that you're doing something that is great for them. You're thinking about what would have worked for you as a child. And not realizing that could be creating a whole nother set of circumstances and issues, because you're now raising your child out of a situation of, let me do the opposite of, because I didn't like this, instead of seeking to understand. And so it's like, I would have hated for that to forever change their relationship, because she chose to keep those letters from him. Because this one act should not minimize all that she has been to him and how much she loves him. While it was huge, and they would have to work through it, and it would be a secret, and there would have to be some trust that would need to be rebuilt. Don't get me wrong. But even in that, when you start, this is why a lot of us like the origin stories of a villain. You're looking at it and you're like, oh, I see why you want to kill everybody. Okay. And so, you know what I mean? Like, you start to get this nuanced picture of people. When Marianne could have had a situation where she was just like, you know, man, when I was growing up, my father was in jail and he would send letters and my mom gave them all to me. And when I got those letters, it was the worst thing that ever happened to me. And I just didn't want to see you go through that. I didn't want you to have to deal with that and have that conversation, or have those thoughts. And so in her mind, she's protecting them. You know, that could have been a scenario right there, or it could have been something more insidious where it was just like, I wanted you to forget about that part of your life. We living in this giant fortress. Don't worry about it. You know, it could have been just.
But just to have it explained is the point.
Right. Just to have it explained.
Just explain it. I mean, and then the question could be whether or not you agree with her thought process. Yeah,
if I'm talking to you and I get an opportunity to see and try to see what you did, I think this is also why sometimes healing processes can be quicker. Because if I'm immediately getting at it as soon as I find out about it, and then I'm going into it with a mind of understanding, I'm not going into it with a mind of hurt. See, there's a very different conversation that happens when someone who is in the process of healing goes and talks to someone that has wronged them. If you are in the process of healing, when you go and you talk to that person, you're not coming to them on the defense. You're coming to them on the offense, and you're wanting to understand why you did what you did.
That's actually a great segue to I think there's only one relationship we didn't really talk about. I'm literally looking through the list. We didn't really talk about his relationship with Rocky. I don't know if there's much to say on it, but I wanted to just create some space for it. You know, he started the relationship with Rocky, truly trying to understand his past better, you know, and to get training from one of the best fighters in the world that he could actually access through relationship. And they became family, you know, and it happened quickly, you know, to the point where Rocky was ready to just die. You know, he was like, I've got cancer. I don't got nothing less. I'm not in touch with my son. Adrian's gone. Paulie's gone. I'm just going to let this sickness take me. And Donnie was the one that said, no, you're going to fight, and really convinced him to fight and go through the chemotherapy process, extending Rocky's life. He's present in the second movie. Again, he is trainer. Donnie calls him Unc. He is like an uncle. And, to the point where when he is in complete disagreement with a fight, he literally says, I can't even be a part of this. I have to step out. He ends up getting drawn back in, but he so loves Donnie that he can't even be a part of what could be ending him or hurting him to that level. And so that was kind of like what we got to see of their relationship, you know, and we even got to see Rocky having a relationship with Bianca. You know, they had like a good little family dynamic going, in terms of Bianca being able to call Rocky being able to call Bianca to support Donnie together. We saw Marianne, even she knew when to call Rocky to kind of say, I'm not getting through here. Donnie needs to talk to a fighter. Rocky, come to LA. We need you. Mayday, mayday.
Also,
So
like,
we got
yeah.
to see the relationship just get really deep. And then he wasn't present at all in the third
And
one.
it was, I'm gonna just let you know that was just, they were going so well. It was like the first one was okay. It still got, Rocky got a major plot line because he's got cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that they weave that in, and like when he's in the getting the chemotherapy, like, all right, you said if I'm fighting, you gonna fight. Here's my watch. Where's my push-ups at? Right now. We start running up and down the steps. And seeing them fight together, it was just so good. And then in the third one, the second one, he fell back a little more. Because now there wasn't really, you had him about his son, but there wasn't really a major plot point in the second one about Rocky. He was falling back a little bit. And at the end of that fight, he's like, it's your time. It's like that transfer of, yo, this is all about you now.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but let me tell you something. Any movie that is birthed from this franchise that doesn't have a Rocky cameo, to me, is just absurd. Because there is no way he didn't communicate with Rocky before that fight. But imagine if Rocky was just at the house with his son and his grandson and their family, and it's just a phone call. And just Rocky says something like, knock his block off. A little shout out to Mick from before, but it's just like, we'll do, bam. And that's it. And like, he's watching the fight. He's not even there. He's not training. And then you could just give Sylvester Stallone a little cameo in every movie that would show up. It doesn't have to be much, but to act like they went through all of that in 1 and 2, and he's just not there. It was ridiculous.
Crazy. And all I could think about was all the ways he could have been in there, you know?
So
like,
many.
One of the things I was thinking about was like the little daughter Amara, as she was starting to get her interest in fighting. Wouldn't it have been really interesting for Rocky to be the one that she goes to, where she's like, Uncle Rocky, like, I want to fight. And anyway, so for her to have like this, and she could be watching Rocky's fights, you know, the same way her dad used to watch Rocky's fights, you know, I was like, that would have been such a nice way for it to all come together. But it does turn out it was politics.
I think that would definitely be an interesting storyline. But I'm saying, I also, like you said, I felt that they were transferring this from Rocky to Creed. So it's like, you could show that Rocky is still alive in this
He's
world,
somewhere in the relationship.
But just like, I'm retired now. I'm not, I'm not in that anymore. But if it's
there's a possibility. Looking at the getting into the politics of it, I mean, Rocky, he actually passed on the opportunity to be in this one. You know, the language he uses is that he bowed out because there was no place for him in it. You know, and I watched one interview where he said, he was like, what would I be doing, sitting there holding a spit bucket? You know, it was kind of like the story had just been written. He said, so this, I'm looking at, there's an article from the Hollywood Reporter that I'm going to read from. And it says, Stallone told Metro that he had bowed out of appearing in Creed 3 and that the film takes the story in a different direction, but that he wished the film well. But you still start to wonder, why isn't he in it? You know, and then in digging into that, came to understand that there is a whole lot of, business breakdown related to the Rocky movies. Apparently the actual movies are owned by the Winkler brothers. Okay. And they hold the title on not only all the Rocky movies, but also on the subsequent Creed films. And so has Rocky made a ton of money? Absolutely. But he still doesn't have the ownership in the franchise that he feels he should have, you know. And in this particular article, it's a Hollywood Reporter article.
Written and directed by him. It's weird.
It's called Sylvester Stallone criticizes Rocky producer Irwin Winkler over ownership dispute. And it's from July of 2022. And I want to read to you just the end of it. Stallone originated the character of Rocky Balboa in 1976, famously writing a 90-page script in 3 days, and made it part of the deal that he star in the film as the boxer. In 2019, Stallone lamented to Variety that he had zero ownership of Rocky. He explained at the time it was shocking that it never came to be, but I was told, hey, you got paid, so what are you complaining about? I was furious. Our commitment to him was that he could star in it, Winkler recounted to The Hollywood Reporter in 1983, remarking on the making of the first Rocky with producer Chartoff. We convinced United Artists to give us the money to make it. They would only give us a limited amount of money, and they said that we had to put up our houses as collateral. We really mortgaged ourselves to make sure that we brought it in on time, and we did. So anyway, the long story is that Rocky does not have ownership of Rocky.
I just hate that. Whatever y'all got going on, Rocky not doing a cameo in Creed 3 is ridiculous. Like y'all should start from that. Like we gotta figure out. There's just no way.
And Sylvester Stallone is listed as a producer on Creed 3, so that's worth naming. But the point remains.
Yeah, I'm just saying. There's no way. I'm sure he would talk to him before every fight.
Absolutely.
Like if there was
before and after, bro. Before and after.
With Marvel, you know, all the Marvel movies had Stan Lee was in every Marvel movie. Even after he died, they put him in a little cartoon. And what I'm saying is, if Sylvester Stallone is alive and there's a movie that started from this franchise, he should be a cameo.
And really, they should just be recording some pep talks and just keeping them in the files.
Yeah, just do something.
Just get some pep talks on the files. Yeah, it was a big gap. It felt so strange. Like even
for when Marianne passed away.
Yeah.
That's another place.
Oh, Brittany!
Why wasn't he at the funeral?
Oh my gosh! Really? He's not going to be at the funeral.
Her kids weren't there. Her kids weren't there. And Rocky wasn't there.
That's what y'all are selling me after 1 and 2, after the relationships they're building. You're selling me he's not even at.
Because in two he said I took 3 trains to get here, and I was like, 3 days on a train to get here.
Brittany. In 2 he said
I rode a train from Pennsylvania to DC, and
he said I've been on trains for 3 days, and you go from
that level of closeness to I don't even call you when I'm going through. Even sense. Just him considering retiring. That would have been a conversation he would have had with Rocky.
That's the only thing you could do is kill him in the universe, but that's to me sacrilege as long as Sylvester Stallone is still alive. Mm-hmm. Like if Sylvester
and even if he was dead, I want a flashback. I do. I want him in there.
That's what they was doing to Mick. Mick was dead, but he was in the movie.
Yep.
Oh, that was another part.
Brought him right back.
About 3 that we touched on that. And I know we got to vote, but I'm saying the Wood Harris, I felt like that was another wasted opportunity because we've all seen how Wood Harris can get. Like when you think about him in The Wire and like the times where he got mad and he was very animated. Like when Stringer asked Brother Mouzone if he needed some help getting back whoever tried to get him. And Avon was like, you don't ask a brother like, a man like brother, do he need help? If he handle it, he gonna handle it on his own. But just that energy, imagine him barking that in the corner at 3. Like,
see,
he was going into the 12th round.
I thought he did a great job.
He was like
Duke's energy, though.
He was like, you gotta fight now. All right, let's fight.
Did his father do better pep talks though?
Everybody did better pep talks. Everybody.
And let
The
me tell you
first-
something.
the
I did
original
not, it
is
took me a
Mick.
minute to catch on
The original is
that Duke
Mick.
was his dad. I was like, oh, that's his dad.
They literally called him Little Duke.
Listen, I did not know. Y'all know I don't remember these characters' names.
Bro,
Well,
is the Creed franchise a classic to you?
yes. And I want to say that I didn't know that until the end of our conversation. But you all made some really good points about the quality of the movie, which I agree with. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, I wouldn't feel, even though I didn't feel my Rocky feels, I can't fault the franchise for a good movie. That wouldn't make sense. It's like, yeah, it didn't necessarily, but like in looking at it, it was a good movie. It's a lot of layers. There's a lot of things to deal with. Yeah, there's some gaping plot holes, but I mean, whatever. I'm not saying it's the best movie ever, but it ain't bad. And it's not where I might not think it's on a 96 level like everybody else. I wasn't expecting to see 50. You know, like I was more, when I pulled up Rotten Tomatoes, I thought it was gonna be like a 77, 76.
Yeah.
Around there. But I didn't think it was gonna be, I didn't think it was Rocky 5. That's what I'm saying. It didn't anger me on that level. I was just more like, man, y'all have all the pieces. Like this idea of him having to fight this prison dude is a good idea. That's never been done in any of the other movies. He haven't, because we've dealt with every fighting style you could think in the ring, but like this is a different beast.
Yeah.
This is a guy who for the past 20 years has been getting his head banged into a boiler. What are you gonna do with that? Like, and the way his build was, what's the name, Brittany?
Jeff Majors.
Jonathan Majors.
Yeah,
Jonathan Majors.
Jonathan Majors.
No, but I'm saying the way his build is, you know what I mean? It's like a rugged, like, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
You know, it looks like you've been shadow boxing next to a furnace. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
totally.
It would have made sense. You know, so I'm sorry. Let me refocus. The point I'm trying to make is that it's a good movie, even though I felt how I felt. And I think ultimately I'll watch it again. You know, I didn't hate it. I didn't hate it. I didn't feel that. Like when I watched Rocky 5, I was like in the theater, like,
yeah, totally.
You know, I didn't even know what to say. So I didn't feel like that. So yes, this movie trilogy is a classic. It will always, be a part of my collection. And so if they're going I hope they don't go further. But
we'll bro, you also say at the same time, if they do come out with a Creed 4, you wouldn't go to the theater.
No.
You wouldn't give it the chance to wow you.
No. I'm not, because I feel like it's just, if what you all are saying is true, it's a new generation of really deep boxing movies, and I'm not interested.
I hope that they
get like
Rocky to come back, and Rocky's like, you didn't have me at that last fight. You see what happened? Do a callback.
The thing about Rocky movies is just, I love it. I love, the end of Rocky 2, when you saw both of them just trading punches. They were both just had nothing. They had nothing left. And they both fell down and they were struggling. 1 second separated the heavyweight championship. I don't need to see this Alvin Ailey wonderful, beautiful fight choreography.
Don't do them like that.
You don't gotta hate on Alvin Ailey. What did Alvin Ailey do?
I love Alvin Ailey.
Alvin Ailey ain't done nothing to no.
Y'all are not hearing me. I love Alvin Ailey. And in the context of it not being a Rocky movie, I love the choreography. I'm saying, in my opinion, it didn't belong in a Rocky movie. That's what I'm saying. But the choreography itself was good. The cinematography itself was good. It's just, I don't want no artsy. I'm at a Rocky movie. I need to see somebody's eye closed right now.
Yeah.
I need to see somebody in the corner. Are you sure you want to go back out there? That's, and I'm going to shut up.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, y'all. I tried to be so good during this podcast.
I gotta say, bro, I think you did a great job. You know,
okay.
So I'm gonna tell you, Creed 1, I was probably like, if I had a different like set of physical circumstances, I might have jumped up. Now, but the truth, my couch is low and I'm tall, so I can't get up real fast for me. But I just like Creed to me was so well done. I was like, this movie reminds me of Rocky 1, 2, and 3. And I was like, if they had Rocky 1, 2, and 3, and then Creed, I would actually be fine. I didn't actually need 4, 5, or 6 of Rocky, honestly. I didn't. And again, we've talked about we're not trying to take us back there. But if they had Rocky 1, 2, and 3, and then we had Creed, I'm like, this would have been like a series of perfect movies to me. Okay. And then Creed 2. I was bored, and I was just like, why am I bored? Because I was doing that same analysis, bro, of like, is this following the formula? And it is. They are following it. Yet I'm not, I'm bored in it, But at the same time, if there had only been Creed and Creed 2, and we were doing this podcast, Creed 1 was so good that I would have made it a classic. I would have made the two of them a classic because I was not so bored in Creed 2 that it would have undone how much I loved Creed in terms of how well they followed the formula and the relationship between Rocky and Donnie. Like, that was so good to me. And then Creed 3. And I thought it was just so well done. I was like, man, that not only have they, because I was worried they were going to do like a Rocky 4 or 5 issue where you strayed somehow. Rocky 4, you went to government propagandas. Rocky 5, what are we doing here on the streets? I thought they were going to do something. And I was actually worried about that because of how bored I was in 2. I was like, we're going to be even farther off it, for 3. But they brought it back to the formula so tightly. I was like, yes, Creed 3. And then the way that they made the character so interesting, to have him fighting somebody where the origin story is not a boxing origin story. We had not seen that in any of the movies. And I was like, now that is creative. Way to get a new take, And so, yeah, these 3 movies for me, they are a classic franchise. And it's because they kept the formula, from my perspective, and they also found a way to innovate, and when I realized that how much the writing and production and the directing teams had like shifted through the 3 movies, I was like, all things considered, this is a coherent arc through these 3 movies, considering so much have fluctuated in terms of the team. And so, yeah, for those reasons, yes, this franchise, the Creed franchise, gets my Apollo. No, what is it? Gets my Johnson Creed shorts.
Shorts. Yes, Johnson it gets Creed shorts. I didn't say that. It gets my Johnson Creed shorts.
Wow. I will tell you, when I first we started, I told you that my decision was already made and that this was not a classic.
Not a classic.
And the reasons why were because I don't see anything in Creed movies that are iconic moments. I see things that I enjoy. I see things that if it comes on TV, I'll watch it, I would even venture to possibly, if someone was like, oh, have you seen Creed 3? I'd be like, yeah, but I'll go see it again. Like, I would go see it again. But nothing to me feels like they have an essence of talking about them later in a way that is iconic.
Yeah, that's interesting.
That's so powerful.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So but with that, the part that is hard for me to not say that it's a classic is because I enjoyed all of them. There were times where I felt like, dang, I wish that Donnie's character was like fighting harder. Like you have it, like you would experience through all of them, like anytime they were showing boxers in Creed, like especially in the first one where they were like showing all their stats and stuff like that, these look like people they were going to beat you up. Like, make no mistake, I'm going to beat you up. Like, you know,
just so you're clear.
Just so you're clear, it's over for you. My muscles aren't like into my neck like I'm Arnold Schwarzenegger, but I'm going to kill you. And so I was like, okay. But then when I would see Donnie's character fighting, I'm like, you're not fighting hard. And I was like, I don't know if that is Michael B. Jordan not fighting hard, or if that is part of Donnie's confidence that he's just not fighting hard.
My homeboy said the exact same thing.
It was weird because I was like, I hate, and the part
he was talking about he wasn't really sold on him looking like a real boxer.
Yes.
It's just interesting that I'm just saying other people have, made that
has been the part, because I'm just like, Michael B. Jordan is an amazing, and that's why I struggle. He's an amazing actor.
Amazing.
Whatever role you put him in, he kills it.
Yo, his emotion is like, because he could do that subtle stuff.
Yeah, even just a few lines, he can really convey a lot.
And like, there's some people who could cry a lot or cry a little bit, but that person who could just do that middle, just, where you could.
Right, is it?
But to your point, sis, even as a great an actor he is, to your point though, sis, in terms of how the story leveraged his great acting, I can't think of like a moment like when we talk about the Rocky franchise, there are some of these speeches that Rocky gave where it's just like, whoa, or just like the moment when Apollo died. And it's like, whoa. Sis, you're right. Even with great acting, your first point of like
the hand up at the end of Balboa when he's saying bye to everybody.
Yes, like
different parts. I can, even with the strong acting, I cannot think of one, sis.
They're not anything. It's like, people are like, yeah, I'm still saying this thing. It's like, no, those parts aren't happening. Now, does that have to be the justification for making something iconic?
No.
Or making something that's really good? No.
But it doesn't have to be discussed, justification.
But it, and so, but after, our conversation, because again, I said I wasn't on the fence, but I started like climbing up the fence as we were talking. I was like, oh. Right. I said, oh, maybe I am. I didn't really want to be on here. But I think that I still am like, they were just good movies, but they weren't classics.
They weren't classics.
Wow. So it's not going to get my Johnson Creed shorts. I apologize for that.
Oh no, this was a fun one.
Shorts are cute, especially Damien had them stones on there. I was like, okay then. That's nice.
I mean, Britt, I'm just saying, but you were not wrong. Your point is not wrong. Like, I'm sitting here, like, I'm really thinking there are parts that I really enjoyed. But
the part that I would say would make it what might be an iconic scene would be in Creed with they're in Philly and it's the motorcycles and the dirt bikes and the four-wheelers. That scene right there,
that was special.
Like, yeah.
That was special. That one.
That was very
to your point, even though that one was great, and it was great.
I love that scene. I was waiting for it.
But
when
you're
I was
talking about like
rewatching.
the Rocky running up the stairs moment.
Right.
I get it. No,
there's
I get what you're
nobody
saying.
that's like, let
I
me
get
go
what you're
get
saying.
4-wheelers and ride the streets of Philly after they saw that. It's like,
You right,
but that
sis.
whole running up the stairs, the Rocky going to the statue,
People
like
still
that's
do
a
it.
thing.
Yeah, that's good points.
Well, there you have it, folks. The Creed franchise is not a classic from the right perspective. Whew, this was a long journey, bro.
But I'm gonna tell you
get
this.
through all
This
these
was my
Rockies
favorite.
and Creeds.
This was probably one of my favorites so far.
Wow.
This was one of my favorites.
Yeah.
This was fun because it's fun. Because like I really didn't know where I was gonna land. Like I just was so conflicted. I was so conflicted about how I was feeling, and I feel like we talked it out, and it ended where it needed to. So
yeah,
this was a fun one.
Thank you, bro. Thank you, sis. Love
you
y'all.
guys.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in and listening. We just appreciate it.
See y'all next time.
Bye.